All right, I'm not gonna lie, I've been a little worried about Bushnell lately because you see, this is the Pro XZ. This is their flagship rangefinder that they have had for almost 4 years now. It's fantastic. It has been my overall best recommendation for rangefinder for years. It's been the one I've used the most. It's very good, but it is very expensive. And over the course of the last, year, 18 months, something has happened that hasn't really happened yet. All of a sudden, the competitors to Bushnell, well, they got good. The Precision Pro NX10, for instance, it's less than half the price and is definitely better than half as good. It's not quite as good as the Pro XZ, but it is a very, very good rangefinder that I have really enjoyed using, and most people are going to be completely happy with it and not have to spend nearly as much money. The Cobalt Q6 Slope, it is every bit as good as the Pro XZ. It just doesn't have a built-in magnet, so if that's important to you, sorry. So all of a sudden, there are legitimate options. I could name another half dozen rangefinders that are worth buying and worth using. So all of a sudden you start wondering, Bushnell, the king of rangefinders, are you still the king? Well, that's what we're gonna answer today because they finally released this. The Bushnell Pro X3, their new flagship, top-of-the-line rangefinder. And I'm gonna let you know if it's any good. Is it worth spending $599 on this when you've got other options that are significantly less? The answer? Well, maybe. All right, so let's talk first impressions of the Pro X3. At first glance, it looks remarkably similar to the outgoing model. It looks very similar in size, style, weight, is very similar to the Pro XE. Even the case, it's pretty much the same case, which I gotta say, first impressions, it's a very nice case. It's perfectly serviceable, but in an area where you're trying to differentiate yourself from your competitors, where you've got a $600 product and a lot of good products are hundreds of dollars less, I don't know, I kind of expected to see them maybe do a little bit more with this, come up with something a little more unique or something that just says, oh, hey, that's cool. But this is the exact same case that comes with the Bushnell V5, a $299 rangefinder that is also excellent. But when you're spending double the money, you kind of expect to see something a little bit nicer. So not a big deal. No one's really going to complain about this. It's perfectly fine, but something that I kind of noted. When you first pick up the Pro X3, it feels awesome. Honestly, like I've talked about this in other rangefinder reviews, I like a rangefinder with some weight. I like some heft. It makes it feel well built. It makes it more steady when you're trying to lock onto a flag. I'm sure there's minimalists out there that would be happier with a rangefinder like the Tech Clear. It's our most compact rangefinder, and at $200, it's actually a hell of a value. But me personally, I like the extra weight, I like it to feel solid, and this absolutely does. Honestly, the Pro X3, and similar to the Pro XE before that, it is the best built rangefinder I've ever used. It just feels solid. It is IPX7 rated, which means it can be fully submerged in up to 3 feet of water for 30 minutes. So if your clubs fall into a lake, the chances are your rangefinder, it's going to be totally fine. So as far as looks, like I said, it looks very similar to the Pro XE, which I think is a good thing. It's a good looking rangefinder. There are a couple major changes. One, the focus ring, they changed the way that works. There's some subtle changes there, which is vastly improved. One of my only major complaints about the Pro XE is the fact that it was really tough to use the focus ring. It's just kind of sticky, and even now I'm having a tough time turning it. With the newer model, it's much easier. So that was a welcome improvement. Also, in the old model, they built the slope adjustment, so you turn slope on and off into the logo on the side. They have changed that. So now there's a little slope slider that's right here at the top that turns slope on and off, and it locks into place. So if you're someone who plays in tournaments frequently and you're really concerned about accidentally ending up in slope mode and getting disqualified, this really makes it easy to make sure that is not going to happen. So if you're spending $600 on a rangefinder, you're probably a pretty serious player. So this is a feature that for this target demographic is actually really useful. So you might be wondering, if they move the slope up top, then what does the logo slider do? Well, it's no longer a slider, it is now a button, and this is what toggles your display color. So one feature you will find in many high-end rangefinders is the display within the viewfinder can alternate between black and red. So as you would expect in the Pro X3, the ambient display is excellent. It is crystal clear. This is one of the knocks I have on cheaper rangefinders that try and do that dual display. Often when you turn the red on, it really degrades the quality of the optics and the quality of the glass and gives you just kind of a cloudy, murky view within the rangefinder. You see like kind of a red haze around the edges, and with this, you get none of that. You just get a very crystal clear red illumination, and an extra bonus feature is when you lock onto the flag, the outside ring also visually flashes red. So you get the vibration, you get the visual jolt, I think is what Bushnell calls it, and it works really well. So the fact you can easily now turn that on and off with just the flick of a switch, or rather the push of a button, is a very nice new feature, and I like these design upgrades when compared to the outgoing model. So before we jump straight into how does it perform, let's talk about a couple other features. It has the Bushnell Bite magnet, which is one of the strongest magnets in the game. This was first introduced in the Pro XZ. They were the first ones to put a magnet on a rangefinder, and now it's kind of industry standard. So the magnet on the Pro X3, it does the job. You stick it to your cart and it's super strong. I would not be worried about it falling off or anything like that. So one of the areas where the Pro X3 is completely different from any other traditional rangefinder that I know of is with its slope with elements feature. So this was first introduced in the Pro XE, and it's carried over into the newest model, and it gets a couple upgrades. So what that means is instead of just calculating slope as a rangefinder normally does, just based on whether or not you're kind of shooting up or down at the flag and adjusting the distance from there, it also factors in the local conditions. So it'll factor in barometric pressure, temperature, and you can even set the altitude for where you are, and it'll take that into account as well. That technology is one of the reasons that this device is so expensive, and in my experience, it works really well. The question is, though, how valuable is it really? My one kind of complaint about it is, that's great. You can adjust for temperature, you can adjust for altitude, but what about wind? If all of a sudden you've got 15-mile winds in your face and it's not calculating that, it can calculate everything else, you're still going to have an inaccurate number. So that's one of the use cases where you could use a tool like Arcos or some of the GPS tools that take all of that stuff into account with their app, but then also take wind into an account. So that's just something to kind of consider. But that being said, the slope with elements works great. It works very well. It's easy to use. It's easy to turn on and off. And if you're playing in general kind of normal benign conditions, it's super useful. It will adjust the slope and factor those things in. Do you need to have it? No, absolutely not. Is that a reason to buy this device? For me, personally, probably not. If you have the Pro XE and it has the same features, do you need to upgrade to be able to set your home altitude? Probably not. But it is a cool feature. It is nice to have, and it's one of the things that sets this apart from everything else that's out there. All right, let's talk about performance. How does this thing perform? Honestly, it's the best rangefinder I've ever used. And I say that a lot. I've said that about a few different devices lately, and we're kind of at the point where you're kind of splitting hairs a little bit. When I first reviewed the Pro XE, it was head and shoulders, night and day, way better than any rangefinder I have used. This, it's a little bit better. It is a little bit better than the Pro XE. It is a little bit better than the Cobalt Q6 that I almost dropped. It's, we're getting to a point where the technology is so good and so refined that we're not necessarily seeing the huge jumps at the top end of the market. Where you're seeing huge jumps is in the case of the Cobalt Q6, for $450, you're getting the quality that you used to have to pay like $600 for. Or, in the case of the Precision Pro NX10, you're paying like $250, $260, and you're getting close to the quality that you are getting for some of those devices that cost double as much. So in this case, yes, this is an upgrade compared to the previous model, but it's a relatively minor upgrade, in my opinion. As far as using it, it's exactly what you would expect. The optics are crystal clear. It is super fast. It is very accurate. One of the things I've noticed with this that I don't believe the old one had is if you hold down the button, you can kind of use it in a scan mode, but it's not like the scan mode you get in like the cheaper $200 rangefinders where the number will bounce all over the place. You can kind of like slowly like start on a tree, and then slowly it'll catch the flag, and then slowly move down and grab the bunker, and it will very very clearly adjust those numbers in a way that's actually useful, as opposed to just kind of bouncing all over the place. So that is actually one of the bigger upgrades I've found that has been tremendously useful in a real world use case. Another thing that's an improvement in the newer model is the reliability of the jolt, of the vibration function. So with the Pro XE, I had a tough time getting my unit to vibrate. It honestly would probably only do it maybe 1 out of every 5 or 6 times I was ranging the flag. So it wasn't consistently giving me that feedback saying, yes, we are 100% locked onto the flag here. The new one does a much better job of that. It works very reliably. So I know when it vibrates, it is locked onto the flag, and it does that on a more regular basis. Pretty much every time you lock onto the flag and it knows it, it will give you the vibrate. I will say it's probably not quite as good as the vibration function on the Cobalt Q6. I was blown away. I actually have this as my most accurate rangefinder because the vibration works so well. And I know for a fact it is locked on and giving me accurate results when it doesn't. It's very close. You're kind of splitting hairs. This is a big improvement over the Jolt feature in the previous XE. And so it is going to be perfectly serviceable and work really well. And it's far better than the Jolt feature or the vibration feature in the NX10. That's the big knock on the NX10, is it vibrates literally every time you hit the button. So that just proves to not be super useful. Real quick, I talked briefly about the display quality. The glass is excellent. The display is excellent. I do like that it is still a very minimal design. Again, with cheaper rangefinders, a lot of the times they're kind of OEM Chinese models that have lots of extra information that you don't need in the viewfinder. And this has just the basics. It will give you the slope. It'll give you the distance. It's got a little battery thing, and away you go. So Bushnell, as expected, best in class in terms of display, in terms of usability, in terms of reliability, in terms of speed, all of the things you expect from a Bushnell flagship rangefinder, this delivers on. Okay, so the question is, should you buy the Bushnell Pro X3? Is it worth $600? The short answer is yes. As I mentioned, it is the best rangefinder I have ever used. The build quality is fantastic. The optics are fantastic. The reliability is excellent. Do I think that some of the features that it touts the most, like the elements features and things like that, yeah, it's a little gimmicky. I don't think you need it. I think that you could probably get rid of the elements and knock $100 off this, and then you've got a real no-brainer purchase on your hands. But for $600, that's kind of top end of the market. You're not seeing many, if any, rangefinders that are more expensive than that. So the good news is you're getting what you paid for. It is very high quality. You will use this and you will use it for many, many years to come. My Pro XE, this has probably seen 150 rounds and it still is just as good as the day I got it. So if you are looking to invest in a product that you know is going to last for a very long time, from a brand that has a great reputation for being the best in the business in terms of rangefinders, optics, and this type of product, then you should feel really good going out and investing in the Bushnell Pro X3. That being said, now more than ever, you have other options. If you want to spend a little bit less for a product that in most ways is just as good, the Cobalt is excellent. This is my biggest surprise of the year. The Cobalt kind of came out of nowhere and is very impressive for around $450 retail. Is this better? Yes. Is it a lot better? No. Is it worth the extra money? Kind of depends on you. There's something to be said for having the Bushnell name brand, the reliability, everything that goes along with that. But Cobalt is an upstart company I've been extremely impressed by. So the Bushnell Pro X3 versus the Precision Pro NX10, they're kind of two different markets. If you're looking at this, you're probably not looking at this. I think the NX10 in a lot of ways wins out over the V5, which is a similar price because you're paying less money. It's got the cool personalization features, which I've talked about in my review. It's very fast, it's very accurate, it's very reliable, and I know you get great customer service with Precision Pro, whereas Bushnell, the customer service, it's a much larger company. It can be a little more hit and miss. So all that to say, the Precision Pro X3 mostly lives up to expectations. It's every bit as good as I expected it to be. I think I was just hoping they might surprise me with something new or something a little bit different. But really, it's just a very solid upgrade over the Pro XE. Minor upgrade, but still very good nonetheless. So in the end, all told, like I said, it's the best rangefinder I've ever used. Is it for everybody? No. Will you be happy with it if you get it? I think so. It's extremely accurate. It does everything that Bushnell does so well. It just costs a lot of money, and there are some options out there that are going to be very solid for less money. If you were thinking about picking up the Pro X3, I highly recommend you consider checking out playbetter.com. They've been my go-to option lately for picking up cool golf gear and golf tech products. Customer service is great, prices are great, selection is great. I just am really a fan of the brand. So I'll link to that below, along with all the other rangefinders we talked about, so you can go find the one that is the best fit for you. So there you go. With that, my name is Sean Ogle. I'm the founder of this thing here at Breaking 80, where we do cool golf tech reviews on an occasional basis here on YouTube and on a much more regular basis over at breaking80.com. Go to breaking80.com/hi to get on our newsletter, where you're going to get an update every time we have a new video, a new product review. We're going to send something out once a week that will hopefully be valuable to you. So with that, I hope you have an excellent day, and we'll see you on the next video.